Every empire in history thought it would last forever. Babylon thought so. They had the hanging gardens, the ziggurat temples, the most powerful military the ancient world had ever seen. They thought they were untouchable. Greece thought so. Alexander the Great conquered the known world by the time he was 30 years old. 30. And he wept because there was nothing left to conquer. Rome thought so. They built roads that still exist today. They called their city the Eternal City. Eternal. They believed it, and every single one of them was wrong. But here's what's wild: a man named Daniel saw them all coming. Sitting in Babylon, in exile, hundreds of years before some of these empires even existed, Daniel saw their rise. He saw their fall. He saw exactly how it would go. And then he saw someone that none of them ever saw coming. Welcome to It Was Always Jesus the Visions. I'm your host, Tony, and this is a 3-part standalone series where we're going to do something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Sit down with the most prophetic, most cosmic, most jaw-dropping chapters in the book of Daniel, lay them side by side with the book of Revelation, and show you that the thread running through all of it, every beast, every throne, every vision, every seal was always Jesus. This is episode 1. We're calling it The Outline. Because what Daniel receives in chapters 7 and 8 is exactly that God's outline of human history. From the rise of empires all the way to the moment his son receives an eternal kingdom. Daniel got the sketch, John got the full picture. And Jesus is the reason both books make sense. Let's get into it. The sea and the beasts, Daniel 7:1-8. We're in Daniel chapter 7. Daniel is asleep, and he has a dream. But this is not the kind of dream where you show up to school without your homework. This is a vision from God, vivid, terrifying, and loaded with meaning. He sees the sea, and the sea is churning. The 4 winds of heaven are stirring it up. And out of that churning water, 4 beasts rise. Now, before we talk about the beasts, let's talk about the sea for a second, because in biblical imagery, the sea is never just water. The sea represents chaos. It represents the nations apart from God. It represents the world in its natural, untamed, fallen state. Think about Genesis 1. That's before God begins to create. The earth is formless and void, and the Spirit of God hovers over the waters. The sea is the before. The sea is what things look like before God speaks order into them. So when Daniel sees 4 beasts rising out of the sea, he's seeing 4 world empires rising out of chaos, rising out of a world that has rejected God's order. And the fact that they come from the sea tells you everything you need to know about their nature before they even open their mouths. Now the beasts themselves. The first one is like a lion with eagle's wings. But as Daniel watches, the wings are torn off, and it's lifted up and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. This is Babylon. The lion was actually the symbol of Babylon. You can see it on their ancient architecture. The eagle's wings represent the speed and power of the empire. But then the wings get pulled off, the power fades, and it's made to stand like a man, humbled. We already saw this in Daniel 4 with Nebuchadnezzar. Babylon was brought low. The second beast is like a bear, raised up on one side with 3 ribs in its mouth. This is Medo-Persia. The raised side represents Persia being the dominant partner in the alliance. The 3 ribs in its mouth, Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt, the 3 major kingdoms it consumed, and it's told to arise and devour much flesh. Medo-Persia was a devouring empire. The third beast is like a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. This is Greece, specifically Alexander the Great. A leopard is already fast, but 4 wings? This is supernatural speed. Alexander conquered from Greece to India in about 13 years. When he died at 32, his kingdom was split among his 4 generals, the 4 heads. This isn't symbolic guessing, this is history matching prophecy point for point. And then there's the 4th beast. And Daniel doesn't even compare it to an animal he knows, he just describes it. Terrifying, dreadful, exceedingly strong. Iron teeth. It devours and breaks in pieces and stamps what's left with its feet. 10 horns, and then a little horn that rises up among them, with eyes like a man and a mouth speaking great things. This is Rome, and beyond Rome, a final world power that this whole vision is building toward. Here's what I want you to notice about all 4 of these beasts. They are animals. not humans. Animals. In the Bible, that's not an accident. When God made humanity, He made us in His image, gave us dominion, gave us dignity. But when kingdoms reject God and operate purely out of ambition and power and violence, they descend. They become something less than human. They become beasts. Every empire that has ever tried to make itself God has always ended up acting like an animal, devouring, terrifying, destroying. That's not just ancient history, that's the story of every system that takes God off the throne and puts power in His place. But the sea doesn't get the last word. The throne room, Daniel 7:9-12. One moment Daniel is watching chaos, beasts, churning seas, iron teeth, and then suddenly the scene is completely different. He's in a throne room, and everything changes. Verse 9. As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, its wheels were burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came out from before him. 1,000,000 served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. I want you to sit in that for a moment. After all the noise of the beasts, after all the devouring and the terrifying and the stamping, after all the chaos of empires rising and falling, God sits down. He doesn't panic. He doesn't scramble. He doesn't react. He sits down. The court is convened. The books, the records of everything every empire has ever done, are opened, and judgment begins. This is one of the most important things you can carry with you from this passage. The chaos of human history is not chaos to God. Every beast that has ever risen, every empire that has ever devoured, God has been watching, recording. And at the right moment, He will sit down, open the books, and settle every account. The fourth beast is destroyed, its body given over to fire. The other beasts have their dominion taken away, though their lives are prolonged for a season. The beasts had their moment. God has eternity. The Son of Man, Daniel 7:13-14. And now we get to the moment that this entire vision has been building toward. The moment that, I want to be honest with you, the first time I really sat with it, I had to put my Bible down and just breathe for a second. Verse 13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man, and he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. One like a son of man, not a beast, not an animal rising from chaos. A human figure, moving through heaven itself, coming on the clouds, approaching the throne of the Ancient of Days. And before all of heaven, he is presented. And he receives what every beast tried to take and couldn't: dominion, glory, a kingdom, every nation, every language, every people, forever. This is Daniel 7:13-14. And I need you to understand. This is not a supporting verse. This is not a footnote. This is the destination of the entire vision. Everything before it, the sea, the beasts, the chaos, the throne room, all of it was leading here, to this moment, to this figure. Now let me show you why this matters so much for understanding Jesus. Son of Man is the title Jesus uses for himself more than any other title in the Gospels. Over 80 times. Not Son of God, though he is that. Not Messiah, though he is that too. Son of Man, over and over and over. And every Jewish person who heard him say it knew exactly what he was referencing. They had the scroll of Daniel. They knew Daniel 7. When Jesus called himself the Son of Man, he wasn't being humble. He was making the most audacious claim imaginable, that he was the figure Daniel saw receiving the eternal kingdom from God himself, and it came to a head at his trial. Mark 14:62. The high priest looks Jesus in the eye and asks him directly, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed?" And Jesus answers, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." That's Daniel 7:13, verbatim, spoken by Jesus about himself in front of the Sanhedrin. And the high priest tears his robes. That's not a reaction to a generic claim about being divine. That's a reaction to a man standing in a Roman-occupied courtroom on trial for his life, looking his accusers in the eye and saying, "I am the one Daniel saw. I am the one who receives the eternal kingdom. I am the Son of Man." The beast tried to take the kingdom by force. He received it as a gift from his father, and the path to that gift ran straight through a cross. Daniel 8, the bridge. If chapter 7 gave us the wide shot, all four empires, the full sweep of history, chapter 8 narrows the lens. Now, Daniel is shown specifically the second and third beasts, Medo-Persia and Greece. He sees a ram with two horns, one higher than the other. It charges west, north, and south, and nothing can stop it. This is Medo-Persia. Then out of the west comes a goat moving so fast its feet don't even touch the ground. It has one prominent horn between its eyes. It charges the ram and destroys it completely. Then, at the height of its power, and yet the horn is broken, and in its place, four horns grow. This is Alexander the Great described 200 years before he was born. The speed, the feet not touching the ground, matches his military campaigns perfectly. The prominent horn broken at the height of power, Alexander dies at 32, at the peak of his empire. The four horns on his kingdom divided among his four generals. Why does this matter for your faith? Because if Daniel got this right, and history confirms he did, then you can trust the rest of what Daniel saw. The Son of Man, the eternal kingdom, the judgment, all of it. The precision of Daniel 8 is God saying, "I told you so," not in arrogance, in love, so that when the hard parts of the vision come, you know the source. The revelation connection. Now I want to do something that I think is going to change the way you read both of these books. I want to show you Daniel 7 inside the book of Revelation, because John didn't write Revelation in a vacuum. He was soaked in Daniel. And when God gave John his vision on the island of Patmos, the language and the imagery of Daniel 7 is everywhere. Revelation chapter 1 verse 13. John turns to see who is speaking to him, and he sees one like a son of man. That's the phrase. Straight from Daniel 7. Jesus is walking among 7 golden lampstands, and John describes him in terms that should sound familiar. A long robe, a golden sash, hair white like wool, eyes like fire, feet like burnished bronze, voice like the roar of many waters. This is the same figure Daniel saw coming on the clouds, 600 years later walking among his churches. Revelation chapter 4 and 5. John is caught up into heaven and he sees a throne. Someone seated on it. Fire, living creatures 10,000 times, 10,000 angels. This is the Ancient of Days throne room from Daniel 7, now in full color and full detail, and in the right hand of the one on the throne. A scroll sealed with 7 seals. The books of Daniel 7 are now a sealed scroll. And the question goes out, who is worthy to open it? Who is worthy to execute the judgment? And no one in heaven or on earth can be found, until the Lamb, the Lion of Judah, the Root of David. He has conquered. He is worthy. He takes the scroll, and heaven erupts. 10,000 times, 10,000 voices. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. That is Daniel 7:14 being fulfilled in real time in the throne room of heaven. The Son of Man receives the kingdom. Revelation chapter 13. A beast rises from the sea, and John describes it as having the body of a leopard, the feet of a bear, the mouth of a lion with 10 horns. Sound familiar? That's because it's a composite of all 4 beasts from Daniel 7. John is saying, every empire, every beastly power, every system that has ever risen from the chaos of the sea, it all converges in this final opposition to God. Daniel saw them separately. John sees them merged into one. Revelation 14:14, the harvest of the earth. And who swings the sickle? One like a son of man with a golden crown on his head. Coming on a cloud. Executing final judgment. Daniel 7 from beginning to end. Daniel saw the sketch. John colored it in. And the figure at the center of both visions, the one coming on the clouds, the one worthy to open the scroll, the one who receives the eternal kingdom, is Jesus. It was always Jesus. So let me bring this home. 4 beasts rose from the sea, 4 empires, 4 systems built on power, ambition, and the rejection of God. They were terrifying in their moment, and every single one of them fell. But the Son of Man, the one Daniel saw coming on the clouds, he didn't rise from the sea, he came from heaven. He didn't take the kingdom by force. He received it as a gift. And the path to that gift, the reason he was worthy to receive it and was a cross. The Ancient of Days didn't open the books and find the Son of Man lacking. He found him worthy. Because the Son of Man had done what no beast could ever do, he laid down his life for the very people the beasts had been devouring. That's the outline Daniel saw. And in episode 2, we're going to go even deeper into the most precisely dated prophecy in all of Scripture. Daniel chapter 9. The 70 weeks. God put the cross on a calendar 500 years before it happened, and I am going to show you exactly how he did it. This has been It Was Always Jesus, the Visions. Episode 1, The Outline. If this episode meant something to you, share it. Send it to someone who's wrestling with prophecy, someone who loves Daniel, someone who needs to see that the whole story, from the first beast to the last seal, was always pointing to Jesus. I'll see you in episode 2. God bless.